I now have a circular ring, but I've got to now file until all of this is equal and smooth. Until all of this is equal and smooth. And then I need to file around the inside. Then I need to sand the whole thing. So, and I also will need to file inside of these. It's going to take a while. Do not underestimate how long finishing is going to take. Because even if you don't run into fire stain, it still takes a while. And then when I find some fire stain, I will stop and make sure to point it out so you know what it looks like, because you've got to get rid of it or it'll ruin your piece. So you can tell the difference between the two sides. This one's filed until it looks like one piece of metal, and this one still isn't. Same thing up here. So make sure you take your time, file it flush, and keep your eyes on the sides. You don't want to cause any sort of big dips to happen. The metal will get hot as you file it, so don't forget to use your ring clamp. So my phone died before I was really done filming. So what I've done off camera is you saw me filing the tops and you saw me filing the underneath until it looked like one solid piece of metal, which it does now. I also took that opportunity to really make sure that these curves here were even and these curves here were even. And I've used the file to kind of round out this point a little bit. Another thing I did off camera is that I took my file and followed the curve of the ring around the outside to even it out. Get rid of any big nicks, and especially on the solder seam. Then I took my file on the curved side, so this is a half round, it's flat on one side, curved on another. I took the curved side and it's very important to push the file and curve with the curvature of the ring. You do not want to file like this, because you'll get little file grooves. So you start at the tip of your file, you push and curve, push and curve. And I did this until the whole inside had the shine from the file on it, because there's naturally going to be spots where it's dipped in. And so once the whole inside is covered in file marks, then you know that it's all even and level. There's no uneven spots. So I did this all the way around. And now I want to talk to you about, before I get too far, I want to talk to you about doing what's called the comfort fit. So right now, the edges of the inside are complete 90-degree angles, and they're quite sharp. I mean, mine doesn't fit well anyways. It will once I finish filing and sanding, but it's really quite sharp and kind of hard to get on. So you take the curved side of your file, you tilt your ring at about a 45-degree angle, and you just file on that sharp corner, and you're beveling it down, and then once we sand it, it'll have a nice slide onto the finger. So you just do it, and then you can see the glint from the light, and you just want to make sure that that glint is roughly the same thickness all the way around. That'll tell you that you've got the same amount of bevel all the way around the ring. I'm using a nice fine file for this. I don't need to use anything with big dramatic teeth. So I'm only taking off a little bit. And if I use a big file with big teeth, then that's gonna leave big marks, which is gonna take more sanding to get off. So I used the least coarse file that I could. If it was taking a long time to do my filing, then I would have switched to a coarser file and then gone back to my fine file. So I've got the comfort fit on one side, and we do it on the other. You can see adding this little touch does not take very long, but it makes a huge difference to the wearer. And then here I might have to switch to the flat side just to really get that curve going. There we go. So you use the files as you would different cooking implements. You know, you pick a spatula when you're making food, comparative to, you don't use a giant fish spatula if you're making an egg. You know, you don't use a 1 egg spatula if you're making a big old pancake. And you use the different shapes for what you need. And you do the same thing with your files. Okay, so I've got my comfort fit. It's also worth noting that if I was not going to fill this space with something, I would probably want to put the comfort fit on the insides of this as well, because it is quite sharp. I'm going to fill it to the top with something, so that's not going to be necessary. But if I was going to leave it open, I would need to consider filing down the sharp edges of the inner design as well. Now for the sanding, you can certainly sand by hand, but I prefer to use these sanding sticks because it saves my fingers from having to hold on to the sandpaper. I can use it in the same way that I use my files. I just think they're easier to use. And since my design is flat all the way around, it's the perfect application. So you sand with your 220 until all the file marks are gone. Then you sand with 320, then 400, and on and on. You want to get to at least 600, and then you can buff it to a shine, or you can put it in the tumbler to shine it up as well. Okay, so the outside sanding is done. I've sanded it all the way to 600. See, there's no more sharp edges. It feels very nice. Except right there. Might hit that real quick. to, think about your wearer. Even if it's you, like if it feels sharp, it's gonna snag on something. We're coming up on sweater time. You don't want to be snagging all your pretty sweaters. All right, now I need to do the inside. I'm going to use a mandrel that I make out of a nail, an old nail. There will be a separate video showing you how to make this. So this is the mandrel. It was once a nail. See, that's a slightly smaller nail, but it was once a nail. We cut the head off, and then we just cut a slit down the shaft of the nail. And let me put it in my flex shaft real quick. So I cut a strip of my sandpaper. I'm starting with 220 again. I slide it into the flex shaft, and then I just very gently press on the gas. You see how it winds it around? I put that inside the ring, and I use it to sand. Notice I am going pretty slow. You don't need a high speed here. If you go too fast, it'll sand off your fingertips, and that doesn't feel very good. So make sure you're getting all the way in there, sand until there's no more file marks. And then don't forget to sand on that angle that you did the comfort fit as well. You always want to keep it moving. If you stay in one spot too long, you'll end up with a little divot and you'll no longer be perfectly circular. So here I am going at that same angle I did with my file to get that comfort edge. Whenever I need to turn, I stop just because it'll come unraveled and then I have to ravel it back up. Oops. And again, when I go slower, I have more control. If it spins off like that, it's not as big of a deal because I'm going slow. It will be tempting to you to come out here and use this on the outside, which is just not really the best practice because it's not the right shape and it can cause you to have little divots if you're not careful. So I still very much advocate for using flat items on the outside. So one trick we learned from a visiting artist is to take a piece of paper, put your silver on the paper, and the white of the paper will reflect those blobs very quickly. I don't see any. So you would do the inside all the way up to 600 again, and you can in fact polish the inside with a special polishing bit. I just don't have one at the ready. I have one at home, I just don't have one here. So I just put a different piece of sandpaper in, hit the gas very gently so my fingers don't get eaten up, put it in here. So this one's 400. Ooh, so smooth, pretty. All right, let's go buff it. So I'm going to start by just showing you the buffing wheel. This is it. This side over here is used with white diamond compound, which is right here. And this side is used with red rouge compound, which is right here. So the white diamond is a little rougher, so you go white diamond first, and then you clean it, and then you do red rouge to get that really nice final polish. This machine, you see it has a warning. This spins, and anything you have dangling off of you can and will get sucked into it, and you could get very badly hurt. So analyze what you're wearing. No earbuds, no hoodie strings, no necklaces, nothing dangling off of my body. Hair back, safety glasses on. All right, so I am going to turn on the machine. It's going to be loud. Turn on the buffing wheel. And then I'm going to load it by just touching the compound to it. You always want to approach the machine in this bottom quadrant. So from the midpoint down. You don't want to go up here because you see how it's wanting to pull it down? So start down here and pull back up. You don't need very much of it at all. And then you go in with your ring. So the most important thing is to not stick anything into it because it will grab it and pull it. And then you do not want to hold your ring like this. You want it so that hold it by the sides like this, so that if the machine were to grab it, it would just fly out of your hand and you would be fine. Do not do this because if the machine grabs it, your entire hand's going in. And it happens in a second. So just hold it by the edges and just gently press. You see, I'm not pushing it in really far. And then when I get to the point, I'm putting the point down so that it's not likely to get caught in there. See that? And again, I'm staying in that bottom quadrant. This machine can do really great things for you. You just have to respect it. It doesn't do a whole lot of good to be scared of it. So I don't want you to be scared, but I do want you to be respectful so that you don't end up inadvertently getting hurt. When the machine grabs something out of your hand, it is scary. It happens super fast. Most of the times you don't even realize what's happened until you hear the sound of your piece hitting the back. So just trying to. Right, so here we have it. You see, it's very dirty right now, but you can tell it's much shinier than it was before. So come with me over to the ultrasonic. This machine is called an ultrasonic. It has a switch on the side. This dictates the heat level, but it is in Celsius. You put your ring in. Let me show you. So you turn it on. Gunk will come off of the string. If you don't have one of these at your house, like I don't, you can just scrub it with a soft toothbrush and some soap. So I want to take a minute to show you why it's so important that you don't stick anything in here. This buff is made up of lots of little layers of cotton usually. And then once it's spinning, centrifugal force pushes it together and it feels solid. But when it's not spinning, you can see it's made up of lots of layers. So if I take my pointy ring and push it in here, it's going to get stuck in a layer and get grabbed and pulled out here. So that's why it's super important that you don't stick anything in there. rouge side, it's going to give us our final polish. The same rules apply. Oh, this is how it looks after the white diamond polish. You see how shiny it is? It's going to get even shinier now with this final polish. This is our red rouge polish. All the same rules apply. You're going to be holding it here in this bottom quadrant and not putting your finger through it. Load it up with the red rouge. Again, you don't need a whole lot. And have at it. I'm not immune to it grabbing my piece. It happens to me all the time. Alright. Look how much shinier it is now. Bling bling. And here she is after her final buff. See how shiny? Slides right on my finger because of that comfort fit. And then obviously I did not shine up this part in here because I'm going to put resin in there. But if I wasn't, I could have shined it up. I could have liver sulfured it to make it dark in there. She's almost done.